We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday. We have a guest with us today. Thank God. Eric, Analyticaliowan, is with us. I just want to give people a heads up. Now, yesterday, when you came to do the or listen to the podcast, it may not have been there until much later in the afternoon, like 2 o'clock my time, Central Time. And I'm going to explain to you what happened. I did a live on YouTube, like I've done in the past. Last time I did a YouTube live, I couldn't see the comments, so that was fucked up. This time I do the YouTube live. I finish it. It went pretty well. It went about an hour and 25 minutes. It went well. We had a lot of people commenting. And then it went to YouTube and started processing. Well, that's not unusual. Sometimes it takes 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending on what it is. This fucker kept processing. I finally went to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, still processing. I woke up in the morning, complained to YouTube. I went to the chats with the support. They didn't tell me fucking anything. They said, well, sometimes it takes long. I said, it takes longer than 8 hours? Yeah, sometimes it's 24 to 48. And then I said, then what is it good for? It doesn't do me any good. So at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, it finally became available so that I could actually download it and put it up as a podcast. So if the podcast for you was late, not my fault. Fucking YouTube. I won't do another YouTube live for a while because I can't trust it. Anyway, enough of the housekeeping. Eric is with us today, and I'm glad to see him because he's always got some great insights. And we have plenty of shit to talk about today. There was some fucked up shit, some good shit going on today.
Yeah, glad to be back. Love being on the podcast. Not surprised you had some bullshit going on with technology because it never seems to fail. That happens every now and again, and it's always when it's least convenient.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, we had some big news today, a couple of big things. Um, so
Well, we can talk about
Donnie
the
loses
biggest thing.
again.
Yeah, Donnie loses again. We can talk about the biggest thing that's going on. And we're doing this at about 9 o'clock Central Time on Wednesday night. So I'm anxious to get up in the morning when you folks are listening to this podcast to take a look at Truth Social because it's going to be a two diaper night for Donald Trump. And it's going to be a marathon of all caps on Truth Social because a three judge panel, federal judges, announced that Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs regarding the Enemies or Emergency Enemies Act are invalid. All of them invalid. And they also said that they've got to vacate all the tariffs they collected. So I don't know what that means. People get their money back or what the fuck. But basically said all of Donald Trump's tariffs, most, if not all of them, bullshit, illegal, can't do it.
Yeah, so that Emergency Powers Act effectively gives Donald Trump the ability to do tariffs in an emergency situation to respond to an emergency. And Congress granted the president the power to do that in the 70s because
Right.
they said, hey, there's 400 or 535 of us between both houses. It takes a while for us to get together. Sometimes we're not in session, we're in recess. We can't respond immediately to emergency issues. The president can react. It's supposed to be used for emergencies.
Well, it's supposed to be
Um,
used during wartime too, right?
Yeah, wartime emergencies, something like that, something big where one person needs to be making the decision, not because a toddler's having a temper tantrum, which is what Donald Trump is doing.
Right.
And this three-judge panel said, yeah, all of your tariffs don't fit the definition of under an emergency. You haven't been clear as to what the emergency is. They're vacated and said, no, you don't have the power to do this. Also to note, this was by the Federal International Trade Court, which is a
Right.
court set up to deal with trade and disputes when dealing with stuff with other countries, things like that. It was originally before a Trump appointed judge in a regular district court who punted it to the trade court. And he said in his decision, even though he thought Trump had the power to put the tariffs on, it belonged over there. So this Trump appointed judge could have just said, yeah, Trump has the authority, but because he punted it, all the tariffs are gone.
So basically, what that means is you didn't want to go against Donald Trump, but he knew enough this was bullshit, and he didn't want to be the guy
Yeah.
who said, "Yeah, go ahead and do it." Yeah, it's a
Yeah, pretty
pussy
much.
ass bitch move. It's a pussy ass bitch move. So the judge has done that. Now that it's gone to that court, needless to say, Donald Trump's going to be crying and whining and upset and all caps, true social shit. Um, he says he's going to appeal it. Can you appeal this kind of court the same way you any court? Can you take it to
Yes.
another federal level or to the
Yes.
Supreme
It
Court?
it will go to the federal appeals court just like it normally would, and then to the Supreme Court like it normally would.
Okay.
But now, depending on how the appeals court, they're in session all the time, so we could get a ruling. But we know these court cases go slow, so it could be anytime between now and over the summer. It could be the end of the year. We don't know what that time frame is going to look like before the appeals court hears this. But courts move kind of slow. Supreme Court will be out of session here in about a month.
Okay.
They are ending their term, and they won't be back to start the new term until September. So if this appeal doesn't wrap up before then, you know, they have their docket set usually by November or December for for the rest of the year. Supreme Court might not hear this until October of next year at the earliest, maybe depending on how fast the appeals court goes on this.
So the key to this will be, will the federal court give him a stay, meaning he gets to continue with the tariffs?
Yeah, that could be the key thing. And I don't know if they will give him a stay uh, in this case because it seems like he's overstepping his authority, at least to me. I know I'm not a
Right.
trained lawyer, but plain language says you need an emergency, and he hasn't been able to point at one other than the trade deficits that he claims are an emergency. Well, we've had trade deficits for decades.
Right.
Why weren't they an emergency before? Why weren't these trade deficits that were similar under his first term? Why weren't they an emergency then?
Exactly. Um, but you were saying before we went on here that you're concerned that if they take the tariffs off, it might give him uh, a way out of some accountability. I don't know that that's the case, but go ahead, tell us what you were talking about there. I get what you're saying.
Well, I can see a couple ways where he avoids accountability on this now. So even though the tariffs are off, and it's they're still going to be able to have to revamp the supply chain issues are still going to have to get dealt with, and some of the confidence issues are going to have to get dealt with. Whether these other countries are going to want to trade with us, even though Trump doesn't have the authority to tariff them now, do they still want to deal with us after that bullshit? Um, any accountability for any bad things that come up now. Well, Donald Trump could say, well, see, I would have fixed it. I would have fixed the economy, but they wouldn't let me put my tariffs on. They ruined my economic plans. And his supporters are going to say, well, see, they didn't let Trump do anything. He couldn't do anything. They tied his hands. I can see
Yeah.
them giving him a pass now.
Well, I could see Donald Trump looking for every loophole or every reasonable deniability because that's what Donald Trump does. But the fact of the matter is we are here because of the tariffs, and he's having those tariffs taken away for the fact that it's fucking illegal. Yeah, Donnie, you can't do it because it's illegal. You're not a dictator yet. Um, but here's the thing: we've got so much shit going on, and even if he tries to weasel out of accountability for the tariffs, now he's fucking up every other fucking possible thing too. He's not going to get clear of the fuck ups that he's accomplishing now. And we hear him in these hearings, and he's seeming more and more unhinged and uh, a little cognitively diminished. This guy's kind of headed downward. He's got a downward spiral here. He keeps losing in court some 200, 300 times. And He's starting to lose his shit in these press conferences.
Oh yeah, he's losing his shit. He's becoming more and more unhinged. We're seeing video evidence of him. What was it with the Saudis? They had to direct him back to the right area to go sit. He had to be reminded when he signed an executive order. Dr. Oz was there. I think it was Dr. Oz had tapped him on the shoulder and reminded him, "Hey, you didn't actually sign that." He had to go back over and actually sign it. Uh, he's definitely becoming more and more diminished day by day. And the stress of continuing to lose these cases is only going to make that worse.
Yeah, and it's going to get under his skin. And since we're talking about getting under his skin, I just did a TikTok and I said, you know how the Republicans love to say the libtards are always getting triggered? They love to do it. And I never looked at it as triggered. I mean, when you're looking at the criminality, the corruption, and the atrocities that these fucks, including Donald Trump, are doing, it's just natural anger about somebody getting away with that. But Donald Trump was in a press conference the other day, and a reporter, and I was surprised by this because he's pretty much handpicked reporters to be in those press conferences. Everybody's throwing softballs. But this reporter said regarding the tariffs, I'm wondering what your response is to people on Wall Street re, referring to as taco, and that was Trump's always chickens out on the tariffs. He puts them in and then he takes them out. He puts them in and then he takes them out. He always chickens out. That's what Wall Street is saying. And when Donald Trump first responded, clearly he didn't hear or acted like he didn't hear. He says, kicking out. And then she said, no, chickening out. You could see right there his face turned red. He was angry and he was trying to hold it back. He goes, huh, I never heard that one before. Chickening out. You mean like when I do this and do this? This is the kind of thing we need to do to Donald Trump because for a guy of his personality, malignant narcissist, you call him a chicken, you call him weak, you call him a loser. That's when he starts to lose it. And we're already starting to see that after that happened.
Oh yeah, he lost it. And of course he reverted to his favorite comment too afterward. He of course after lying about the facts of him backing down on these tariffs, he's like, "Well, that's just a nasty question. You should never say that in front of me ever again."
Yeah. Which means everybody's going to say it to him every time. And I think I told the people on TikTok, I said, look, I've always called him Dirty Diaper Donnie. I'm willing to change that up and call him Chicken Man Donnie because he is a coward and he is a chicken. And even Wall Street knows it. Um, I think we're getting to that point where there's enough losses and enough failures where Republicans are starting to go, the fuck? And Donald Trump's starting to feel the pressure. And this is where all malignant narcissists end up. They fly high for a while, but when they start losing, it starts becoming overwhelming. And I think we're in the early stages of that with Donald Trump.
I think so too. I do think though that we're not quite at the point where Republicans are going to walk away. I've been saying for a
No.
long time. It's going to come down to when they think that math is for their own reelection. And this leads to something else we found out today. Tommy Tuberville announced he's going to run for governor of Alabama and not seek reelection as senator. Well, he's pretty heavy MAGA, etc. I think you're going to still see him try to hold on. The MAGA people, they're going to try to keep on to power, moving to higher positions or what have you. As they
Yeah.
continue to lose, I don't think they're going to cut him loose till after the midterms. Is what I'm beginning to think. They're going to try to ride Donald Trump at least to victory in the midterms. It's not going to work. I think they're going to lose and lose big,
Yeah.
but they're going to try. And then when they actually get handed their ass in the midterms, that's when they're going to go, oh, fuck, we have to do something. Of course, that's barring Donald Trump completely collapsing between here and there and then being him forcing them to do something to get rid of him.
Well, you know, the current governor of Alabama is Kay Ivey, who's a real fucking doozy, a big Trumplefuck, not very smart. So Tommy Tuberville might be just the kind of person that needs will win in Alabama. I'm guessing Kay Ivey is maybe running her term out. Maybe that's why she's not running again, or it could be because she's 150 years old. That might have some bearing on it too. But it would be nice to get Tommy Tuberville out of the Senate because he's just so fucking dumb. I mean, he's MAGA certainly, and he's a conspiracy theorist, but he's so fucking dumb. And hopefully
Well,
that would give a better opportunity for a Democrat in Alabama. I know I'm asking a lot, fucking Alabama, but you never know.
you're a couple things. One, you're not asking that much from Alabama because Tommy Tuberville is only in his first term as senator
Hmm.
from Alabama.
Oh,
Before him was Doug Jones, a Democrat.
good point.
So
Good
you're
point.
not asking that much from Alabama. They just had a Democrat 5 years, 4 years ago until Tuberville won. And Kay Ivey is term limited. Alabama has a limit of two for governor.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing maybe some of the Republicans came to Tommy and said, "Listen, Tommy, you're not going to win this next term. You won the first one. You got lucky. You're not going to win this next one. So instead of standing there and getting embarrassed, he's going to go try to run for governor." Um, that would be hilarious if we got a senator back again with the Democrats from Alabama. That would
I
be
mean
wonderful.
that would be great. Um, I think he's got enough name recognition in Alabama, though. He's probably going to steamroll the governor's race. Um, so if he, because I think he's going to clear the field for Republican challengers in the primary,
Yeah,
and
probably.
then it'll be simply. I think he's going to be if he does, he'll probably be a lock for being governor. But then he's Alabama's problem and only
Right.
Alabama's problem, and we could maybe get a Democratic senator, but they may surprise us. I mean, I know it's asking a lot. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but with as bad as MAGA and Republicans have been and all of the uncertainty and everything going on right now, if political pressure stays the way it is, I would say it's not outside the realm of possibility to take both the governor race and a senator seat from Alabama just because of how bad things are going for Republicans right now.
Well, you make a good point. I mean, we're seeing a lot of these local elections since all this has been going on with MAGA and Donald Trump and the immense amount of failures. We're seeing a lot of Republican strongholds going to Democrats. And it's kind of what we said before. Once people start feeling the pain or seeing the ridiculousness, we could be in for a literal tidal wave of blue come 2026. And maybe we're already starting to see this. People are starting to feel the pain and they go, anything Republican, we don't want none of that. And that definitely could happen.
Oh, yeah. And if by some chance their big, beautiful bill does pass, watch out because some of the stuff that's in there, the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps, all of that, that's going to hit red states. That's going to hit Republican stronghold states. And if Democrats were smart, they could run on a very simple message of restoring those programs for the people that need it
Yeah.
and not having to get too overly into everything, just restoring it for the people that need it. And you could get some of the Republican voters that had lost their benefits go, oh yeah, well, they took it from me and I shouldn't have had mine taken. I deserve it. They'd get behind that message. You could see a lot of flipping blue. Um, so one of the other things in there is there's this thing going on, and I've seen a couple things about it, about them wanting to change the age of dependence to 7 from
Yeah.
18. Now I saw a video on TikTok right before we did this podcast or started recording. Somebody was explaining it. There's some misinformation about it. And according to this TikToker, the way they broke it down is it's not about saying, well, you can't claim them up until 18 for taxes or anything. That's not it. It's about whether or not you, as the parent, would have to be required to work to get any sorts of benefits like food stamps, Medicaid, if you have children at home, and the cutoff is 7, apparently, is what they want to say. So if your children are over 7, now you got to
You
have a
got it.
job. You can't be a
Now you got to have a
stay-at-home
job.
parent.
Now, I've heard about kind of a red herring in this bill. You know, we know about the cuts to Medicaid and all this stuff, but they tried to sneak a paragraph in there about finding a loophole for Donald Trump uh, being able to get away with some of his goofy shit with the courts. They've slipped that in there. It has nothing to do with finance. It has nothing to do with the budget, but they're doing it to try to do an end run around the judicial branch. Uh, Mike Flood, I think his name is Mike Flood, who's a representative from Nebraska, was doing a town hall. Needless to say, it wasn't going well. And somebody brought up that paragraph saying, you know, you're trying to do an end run around the judicial system. And Mike Flood said, "Well, when I voted for it, I hadn't read that part." Oh, Mike, you hadn't read the bill that you voted for. And he says, "When I get back to Congress, I'm going to my Senate counterpart and tell them to take that out." They were hoping nobody would find out about it. But let me ask you this, you probably know this better than me. They want to pass this bill on reconciliation, meaning they only need a simple majority to win, one vote to win. But the rule on that is it has to be completely about the budget. And the fact that this is in that budget now would be contrary to what the rule says. So, in my mind, theoretically, the Democrats could say, okay, we're not doing reconciliation anymore. I mean, I don't even know the Republicans would vote for it with reconciliation, but they tried to slip something in, hope nobody would see it. That's why it was 1,000 pages. Of course, they did see it, and now they might have a problem with reconciliation. Then they need 60 votes.
Yeah, and I kind of said something about that when it passed, about it not being tied to the budget. Now, I
Right.
guess I've seen a couple things on it. It says apparently the wording is, which is how they think they can get around reconciliation, is there'll be no funding for federal courts to impose nationwide injunctions unless there is a bond put up on the injunction. However, there is another law that says the federal government doesn't have to put a bond up involving injunctions.
Yeah.
So they're trying to just say, well, okay, then the federal government can't have any injunctions put against them to prevent them from doing something. So they're trying to end run around the reconciliation process. However, if the Senate parliamentarian, who is nonpartisan, has been there, I don't remember how long the current one has been there. They're in charge of reading all the bills. They do all the rules stuff. If they rule that this doesn't qualify for reconciliation, it doesn't qualify for reconciliation, and then they require the normal majority, and they would need 7 Democrats to agree to pass this thing, or it doesn't pass. Um, but there's already several Republicans that are saying, "Not on your life. We passing it the way it stands." I think they've lost 4 or 5 already, and they can only
Yeah.
lose 3 even with reconciliation.
Yeah, exactly. And well, and the thing about it is the thing that's troubling about this, there's two camps that don't like this bill. There's the ones that have a reasonable mind and know that they're going to get fucking unelected if they vote to cut Medicaid. But there's another faction of these people that want it worse. They want bigger cuts, and for whatever reason, they can't get along on this. So thankfully, there's two sides of the party that are totally against this for totally different reasons. And Donald Trump was asked about it, and he says, "No, I think it's going pretty well. I think we'll get this done." And I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. This is the problem the Republicans have had all along.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll pass either. And depending on what changes are made, if they take out this part about fucking with the courts, if they take out whatever they get through the Senate, any changes, even if it doesn't matter, even if it's just redoing sentence structure, if the bill changes as all, the way I understand it is it has to go back to the House to get voted on again to approve any changes. So the
Right,
House
right,
only passed it by one vote.
right.
Now, Mike Flood's taken pressure from his constituents over this bill. If it comes back with that still in there, maybe he's a no vote, and maybe it dies in the House on the second chance. We don't know yet. This is far from a guarantee that it's going to pass. Republicans are in disarray; they can't get their own house in order, and it's all because Donald Trump is trying to push, and I think he's pushing to get this passed because he knows his time is limited in multiple ways. I think he's worried about his own health issues, which he'll never admit publicly.
Yeah,
And I think he's worried about being irrelevant to his party and them kicking him out.
yeah, yeah. I think he's worried about the midterms, and if the Democrats uh, get the majority in the House and maybe the Senate, then there's going to be impeachment hearings again, and that's going to suck up all the air, and they'll continue to get nothing done. I mean, they weren't going to do anything anyway, but Donald Trump's got a lot of problems in the offing. If things don't go right, and unfortunately for Donald Trump, nothing is going right. I said something about the Democrats, and I find it disturbing if I'm right about this. Not all of them necessarily, but part of me, when I listen to Democrats, um, it's kind of like they hope it passes because they know how devastating it will be to the Republicans. They hope the bill passes. They're not going to vote for it, of course, but they hope the bill passes so they just implode the Republican Party. You get that sense from them? I mean, I kind of felt that too after the election when they didn't do anything. They said, well, you voted for it. Fuck you. Suffer.
Kind of, kind of. I hate to think that way, but what else can they do? They can plead
Yeah.
their case out, and try to turn these people. But ultimately, if it passes, then it's on the Republicans when it comes back and bites everybody in the ass. That we're in a situation where they have majorities in both houses and the presidency, and I mean that happens from time to time, but they don't need to be bipartisan. So if they and Democrats are seeing big picture, going, this is going to fuck everybody. We're not going to take any heat from this from the people who are at least smart enough to understand how politics work.
Yeah. 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 You know, I'm getting a little tired of this Jake Tapper thing. This guy is coming out and looks more like a bigger piece of shit every day. He wrote the book about the cognitive diminishment of Joe Biden, which who cares at this point? Joe Biden was still effective and far better president than Donald Trump ever was, but they're focused on that. They want to distract everything to Joe Biden. Fucking Joe Biden's got cancer. He's a private citizen. Who cares? But now Donald Trump, people are starting to question his cognitive ability. I saw somebody quoted as saying that Donald Trump's brain is gravy, probably thick and cholesterol full gravy, because he's saying things and he's not catching things. He's hearing things wrong. He's responding things wrong. I think we're finally really seeing this cognitive ability um, really starting to decline. Um, and I got to think it's getting a little scary for the Republicans at this point because they're seeing more of it than we are.
Oh yeah, I think they're getting terrified by what they're seeing from Donald Trump. I think they're trying to control it as best they can, but he's Donald Trump. He's not one to take a back seat. He has to be out there. We talked about a little bit with some of the other stuff. It's going to be a 1 a.m., a 3 a.m. Truth Social post session because you can't take his phone away from him. He's got to be able to have that middle of the night outlet so he can all caps vent to his tens of thousands of followers or whatever it is on
Yeah.
Truth Social because uh that's his outlet. But they can't keep him out of the limelight enough, despite the fact they want to keep him out of the limelight, I believe.
Oh, I do
Um
too.
he's making things worse every time he appears on TV. He looks worse every time he tweets something. It sounds bad. they, like I said, have been saying since he won re-election, they are going to be playing a game of, or they're doing the math, they're doing the calculations for when they have to do something, for when it's going to affect them. I still believe that, and they're going to try to ride it, Donald Trump out for as long as they can until it costs them power. But they're going to do something when they think it's most advantageous, or when he leaves them little to no choice to do, but to do something.
They're in a tough spot because they're holding on a lot longer than I thought they would, and it's already cost them with the things he's done and said. But even if they decide to impeach him or get rid of him somehow, they're never going to get the 25-30% of the people that love Donald Trump no matter what. So if they continue with Donald Trump, they're going to lose a big chunk of their audience because he's going to sink them. But if they get rid of him, they've got the base that's going to love him no matter what, and they're going to be pissed. They're in a no-win situation right now, really. They're in
Yes,
trouble right now, and I think they realize it.
yes, yet they are in a heap of trouble. The best out for them would honestly be
I
for
know what you're going
the
to say.
Grim Reaper to show up, make that call, give us the headline we've been waiting to read,
Yeah.
and be forced to go with JD Vance and whoever Vance would pick for VP, and go, it was just his time. There's nothing we could do. And they might be able to somehow keep that MAGA 25% base with going with Vance. And then the people that are upset with Trump could maybe give JD Vance a pass because he's not Trump, and wait and see what he fucks up and how bad he does. That is the only way they can get out of this safely.
Yeah, the thing about it is with JD Vance, he's more calm than Donald Trump, but he's just as dumb as Donald Trump. He's not doesn't have cognitive issues that we know of, but the shit he says and the shit he does, just so stupid. He's not well liked amongst Republicans. Pretty much guarantee you that. And he may have some problems too going forward because there's some potential criminality from him. I was going to mention one thing. There's a guy that was on mainstream media. His name is Chris Cizilla, I think his name is. He was on mainstream media a lot. He's kind of a goof. Now he's on YouTube or TikTok or wherever the fuck he is. And I'm watching him, and he was trying to make the point. People are saying Donald Trump is declining. He's not declining. I go, wow, I want to hear this. I want to hear this explanation. How is Donald Trump not declining? And his argument was this. Well, he said crazy shit recently, but he said crazy shit in the 80s. He said crazy shit in the 90s. He said crazy shit in the 2000s. He's not declining. Well, I beg to differ because he's always said crazy shit because he's stupid. My premise is that he's always been mentally ill one way or another. But in terms of whether or not he's declining cognitively, he's not just saying crazy shit. He's saying incoherent shit. And that would suggest decline. And Chris Cizilla could fuck off as far as I'm concerned because I see him coming from mainstream media and he's doing what they try to do in mainstream media, ride the fucking middle and try to keep the Republicans happy and the Democrats happy so I get more followers and more views. Fuck you, Cizilla. If you want to do this on the social media side, pick a side and ride that motherfucker.
Yeah, he's had issues for a long time. He has said some fucked up shit his entire life. I
Yeah.
mean, we've heard stories of some of the bullshit Donald Trump has said and done, talking well before he ever ran for president. You know, what on the was it the Access Hollywood tape saying he could grab him by the genitals because he's rich or whatever, talking about walking in on Miss
Yeah.
Teen USA because he owned the pageant and how great that was, things like that. He said fucked up shit forever, but you're right. He's in the area where it's incoherent, it's babbling. And it's not even just babbling. You see him searching for words.
Yeah.
several times. Like he was looking for the word criminal. He couldn't come up with it. So he came up with people of crime in one of his interviews.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and he mispronounces so many words, words that should be relatively simple. He forgets things. You know, we were talking about the executive orders. Literally, you've got him on camera and on mic saying, getting an executive order and asking, "What does this say?" I'm going to sign this executive order, have no idea what it says, but this guy's going to give me cliff notes so I know what I'm signing when I'm signing it. These fucking people around Donald Trump could put anything in front of him and say, sign it, Donnie, you'll look really cool, and he'll sign that motherfucker.
yeah, you're probably right. For some reason, when you said they could put anything in front of him, it just reminded me of MASH and Radar with Henry Blake. Always handed him something. Oh, yeah, I need your signature on this, sir. What am I signing? Well, it's top secret, but you must know what it is because otherwise they wouldn't have you sign it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he just
That's pretty
signs it
much.
away. Okay, whatever.
Well, I mean, don't you get that impression with Donald Trump, though? He's just kind of for lack of a better word, kind of a puppet. He doesn't really know what's going on. He doesn't want to do the work. He doesn't want to read. He's having everybody tell him what's going on, and he trusts everybody, of course, until they fuck him. And he just signs anything. So we really have got his inner circle running this country, not Donald Trump. And this is part of the reason why he continues to fuck up. They figure, well, let Donnie do it. We don't care. And maybe he gets away with it, and then we win. But Donnie has no clue what he's doing at any given time.
No, about the only two times he knows, well, three times that he knows what he's doing is when he's shoveling down a Big Mac, when he's filling his diaper, or playing around to golf.
Yeah, and golf, we know he cheats a lot, so I don't know that he's all that good either.
Uh,
Um,
I didn't say good. I just said he knows what he's doing. He at least
yeah,
knows that he's playing golf.
yeah. Well, that's the other thing about this bill thing. You know, they take away food from kids, they cut Medicaid, but in this bill, they also include $300 million to cover security for when he golfs. I mean, how does that look to people? Are you going to cut my health care, but Donnie's got plenty of money to fucking go golf? And not only $300 million to cover security and expenses, but he does it at his own golf club. So that money is going to his properties and then going into his fucking pocket.
Yeah, that's blatant illegal. It should be illegal. It should be a violation of the emoluments clause. But we've been dealing with it ever since his first term, and somebody challenged it. And then the Supreme Court punted on it because they said, well, he's not president anymore. So the point's moot. Well, no, if the violation was there and he was doing it when he was president, the case shouldn't be considered moot. You should rule on the damn thing. And if he owes us money back from all the expenses paid, we should get
Uh,
that money back.
yeah, no shit. Well, we talk about blatant corruption. Uh, what we know now for sure, and he's not even hiding it. And they'll say, "Well, he's not hiding it, so it must be legal." No, motherfucker, just because he's bold enough to do this. But let's just say right now, pardons, they're for sale. We heard about it in the first term that he was selling pardons for $2 million, and people say, "Oh, no, he wasn't doing that." Fuck, he wasn't. He's doing it right now, right in front of the public. He's taking uh, a sheriff who was busted for taking bribes. He went through trial. There was evidence. He was convicted. Let's let him go. Then he takes another guy who I don't think he was working or financing nursing homes. He's collecting money from people's paychecks to pay Social Security, but instead he's putting it in his pocket. He's stealing from Social Security, the place they say that was so wasteful. Gives him a pardon, which was weird because a few days earlier, or maybe a week earlier, or whatever, this guy's mom attended $1 million fundraiser luncheon or dinner or something like that. You know, Donnie's getting paid. And then you've got the Chrisleys, a fucking reality star. They are in jail for bank fraud for 10 years. just cuts them loose too. So if Donnie Trump can get something out of this, then he will give anybody a pardon. I just want to say something about a couple of these people. In their crimes and in their punishment, they were required to give restitution to the people that they ripped off. But when they get a pardon, they don't have to pay the restitution. So not only do these guys get cut free, the people who got fucked continue to get fucked.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about if they had to continue to pay the restitution after getting a pardon, but
I'd heard they don't. Hopefully they do, but I doubt it.
still, yeah, he's given pardons to people who defraud people. Well, and he's doing it because he feels a kinship with them because he defrauds people.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's ridiculous. He's definitely for sale. That $1 million a plate crypto dinner or whatever that he had was nothing but a blatant money grab. It's bullshit. Shouldn't be allowed to happen while you're president. But uh, I'm sure you've covered this. Did you hear what his press secretary, Carol Ann Levitt, said about that?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
That it's private time. That was his private, he was a private citizen doing that, which means the immunity ruling from the Supreme Court doesn't apply because it's not an official act.
Right. Well, there's
And
something else about that immunity thing, too. That immunity doesn't include bribery. So whether he's doing an official act or not, he's not covered with immunity for bribery. But you're right. Carolyn Levitt said, well, it's his private time. But here's the weird thing about that. It was his private time. It was all secret. The list was secret. But somehow there was video released of it. And of course, he's got the presidential seal and he's got all this presidential. I'm sure the office of the president is paying for everything. So it's either official or it's not official. Either way, he's fucked. Um, but I find it interesting that this is all secret, but we see a video. That tells me there's people within his little internal group that are getting a little fed up and starting to leak shit. And we know how Donnie loves leakers.
oh yeah, they're going to be more focused on the leak though, and the leaker than they are going to be the actual criminality of whatever's going on because that's how
Yeah,
Republicans
of
are
course.
anymore. They get more worried about some of the bullshit. I mean, I just wish we could get back to some Nixon level Republicans. If we had those Republicans in office right now, Dottie would have been out the door probably day 3 of this term.
Yeah. Well, I think we're coming to that point. We're maybe not there yet, but there will be a point when people will see the writing on the wall that this ship is starting to list, and it may be going wrong, and there'll be people trying to save their asses, whether they can or not, I don't know, but you're going to see leaks, and you're going to see people stepping away, and that will start first. And then when Donald Trump gets people jumping on him, it'll be a fucking monkey pile. Everybody will jump on him. The future does not look bright for Donald Trump, the
No, no,
chicken
it
man.
doesn't. You're right about that. The dog pile there. They're gonna, uh, once that first person, and maybe not the first, because the first few are probably going to be lower level. Once that first big name really turns 100% against him, whoever that might be, I think that's going to be the telling point. Even some of the big names that have kind of turned against him a little bit still have been on his side for certain things. People like Mitch McConnell, they haven't fully stepped away yet.
Oh,
But when those first couple big names finally fully break, especially if it's reacted to well by Republicans and in Republican media, et cetera, by the voting base, you are going to see a dog pile, and it is not going to be pretty. And Donald Trump will be completely blindsided because it's going to happen so fast.
yeah, he'll be overwhelmed, and I'm looking forward to that time when there's a monkey pile or a dog pile on Donald Trump, and there's Lindsey Graham in his ball dress, his ball gown, humping the legs of every young representative he can come across.
Yeah, you're probably right. Uh, it's going to be bad. It's going to be a bloodbath, figuratively speaking, and no one's going to see it coming. And I don't even think the people involved are going to be prepared for what is going to happen and how it's going to go, because it's just going to, it's like the first person that starts to be, oh yeah, I'm doing the right thing. The next person will just like, well, they went, I'm going to say something, and then before you know it, it could be a day, a couple of weeks, but I don't think more than maybe a couple of weeks to a month at the most before the majority of Republicans have completely turned and piled on. It is going to be disastrous for Donald Trump.
It will be. It's inevitable. I mean, people say, "How do you know that for sure?" I said, "Well, I've known malignant narcissists, not at this level, of course, but it's how it always ends. They end up being a pariah. They end up getting people, throwing them under the bus. And once one person does it, it's like a dam breaking, and everybody will do it. Everybody's going to be trying to save their ass. The thing is, though, for me, I feel like most of these people that are still hanging on, they've waited too long. It's too late to get away from that stink. Even if they jump ship tomorrow or a week from now or a month from now, they're still going to have that hanging over them no matter what. Because every time they run for reelection, the Democrats going to say, yeah, but you were Donald Trump's boy. You were Donald Trump's gal. And that is going to weigh heavily on what they do in their futures. I just think they've waited too long. They should have cut them loose in 2020 and just let them go, but they couldn't do that.
Yeah, you're right. It is too long. And part of the blame rests, we've talked about it before. I still blame Mitch McConnell.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Mitch McConnell had the perfect opportunity for the party to cut ties with Donald Trump. And during his second impeachment, if he would have said, we're voting to convict, or I'm voting to convict in that case, I guarantee you enough Republicans would have backed his play. They would have convicted him in the second impeachment. He'd be ineligible. He wouldn't be in office right now. But instead, he's like, well, Donald Trump's going to do what all politicians who lose do. He's going to go back to Mar-a-Lago and he's going to slink off and be forgotten. Well, he under he didn't expect this out of Donald Trump to come back around. He wasn't expecting him to stay relevant. But I think he also, as I've talked about before, I think he expected Merrick Garland and the DOJ and the Democrats to do something about Donald Trump on a criminal level and for us to clean up his mess. And
Well,
then when
yeah, I
that
think,
didn't happen,
yeah. Well, I think Mitch McConnell was surprised about this whole thing. I mean, he even said as such that, let the courts handle Donald Trump. He will be held responsible. And then when he's brought back in the fold, he becomes relevant, and then he actually wins. I think that Mitch McConnell was as surprised as anybody. But Mitch McConnell has one thing going for him. He's going to be dead soon anyway, so who the fuck cares?
well, yeah, and he's out of politics completely as of 26, which even though there's probably going to get another Republican in that race, uh, you know, being Kentucky, good chance that they elect a Republican. Um,
Well, do you think
I
somebody like Andy Bashir could run for the Senate and maybe win, given he's the governor? I know he's talked
Bashir,
about as the president, but he might be able to win that.
he might be able to, and he might be one that could do a springboard like Obama did, 2 years as a senator, and then you're still in the talking for uh,
Right.
the presidency. It's entirely possible. I think though, I don't know much about Kentucky politics, but the little bit I do know, I think Bashir is probably one of the few Democrats that could probably win statewide, aside from the or was that was that Kentucky three or the ten? No, it was Tennessee with the three that got kicked out of the
Right.
state
Right.
legislature.
Right.
But those, I think he's one of the few that could actually win statewide in Kentucky, just because right now it's very hard to win in a red state. However, one thing that whoever runs as a Democrat would have going for them in 26 is Republicans are going to have to put money into this race because
Yeah.
You don't have McConnell running. It's kind of like Grassley running here in Iowa. You
Right.
put Grassley's name on the ballot, he puts up some signs, barely runs any damn ads anywhere,
Right.
and they're almost guaranteed to win. And I think McConnell does the same thing. They don't do hardly any ads. They don't need to. Does some appearances, and because he's been there for so long, people will just vote for him. Now you got
Right.
somebody new, and that changes things. I say that a lot.
We've got some other governors' races that are going to be interesting. We've got Georgia. Um, we heard Marjorie Taylor Greene might run for governor. Now that's not going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Um, there was some talk that the Georgia governor would run for Senate against Ossoff. That's not going to happen. We've got Ron DeSantis terming out in Florida. That will be very interesting because I think people in Florida a little tired of Ron DeSantis and maybe the Republicans in general because that place has become a shithole, and that's sad because it's a beautiful state. But the Republicans have absolutely fucked that state up to no end.
Yeah, Florida's going to be interesting to see what they do there. You could see a Democrat, or if it is a Republican, they would have to be back to being more of a moderate Republican, maybe. Uh, that could potentially be a possibility, but I think DeSantis has done enough to fuck Florida over. It could go blue for a little while. Um, Here in Iowa, my favorite governor, Kim Reynolds,
Yeah.
is not seeking reelection.
Really?
Yeah, she announced that a while ago. She's not seeking reelection. Um,
Why do you think that is?
she's of course giving the standard line, gonna spend more time with family, etc. I think she's afraid of losing. I
Yeah,
think that
I think you're right.
I think they're really worried about uh I think she's actually seeing the writing on the wall of being tied too closely to Trump and some other stuff. Um, so she's not running. There's been some names brought up. Uh, Nobody that I'm overly worried about. The biggest name I've seen is Pat Grassley, the current Speaker of the Iowa House, who
Yeah.
is Chuck Grassley's grandson. He might be the biggest run for and he's my age. He's within a year or two of me of my age.
Really?
Um, yeah, he might be the biggest threat to Democrats, but right now, it's Rob Sand is the state auditor for Iowa.
Oh, okay.
He's entered the race as a Democrat. He is currently the only statewide elected Democrat in Iowa government.
Oh, he'd be the one to run. Do you
Yeah.
sense any kind of shift in Iowa, politically speaking? You know, just in your area, talking to people, are people feeling a little less Trump humpy?
From the little bits I've seen, um, in my area, it's mixed. I know the neighbor behind me, we've talked about it before on the podcast. At one point, he had a huge Trump flag hanging up in his garage.
Yeah.
Uh, and whenever I look out one of my back windows and he's got his garage door open, I don't see that Trump flag anymore. Neighbor down
Wow.
the street, well, a couple blocks down the street, he had he used to always fly a flag or an FJB flag or something like that. Haven't seen a flag fly in there like that in months, well before the election, actually. Um, so I'm seeing a little bit of it, and we'll just have to see how Iowa goes. But I think there's a good chance Iowa could flip blue again. I mean, we were heading blue up until they dug up Terry Branstad to run back in, was it 16? I think it was 16. Anyway, they dug up Terry Branstad to run uh, because they couldn't find anybody to beat Democrats. So they brought somebody who was a very popular former Republican governor. Then he gets appointed to be ambassador to China by Trump during the first term. Then we got stuck with Kim Reynolds.
Right.
So I think there's a good chance Iowa could maybe be going on that trajectory, especially if all the cuts to things like USAID and foreign aid and all sorts of things come back and bite Iowa farmers in the ass. Having that R next to your name might be a curse.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. We know Nebraska, just south of you, um, or west of you. I don't know. Well, it's near you. Um, the Nebraska's getting its ass kicked, and farmers are in trouble there, and the state in general could be bankrupt soon. Are the farmers in Iowa feeling the pinch of this USAID stuff and just the general farm problems?
Uh, from the little bit I'm hearing, I'm not hearing much, but I don't, even though I live in a smaller town, we're not completely rural based. So I don't interact with a lot of farmers. Uh, and I'm not hearing a lot of updates through uh, my extended family. I haven't talked to a lot of them lately um, about anything really, but uh, I know they got to be feeling the pinch from all this going on because, if they're not buying our products and USAID is not buying our products, and with all the fluctuations going on, if Donald Trump is talking about, trying to pump up production for oil, well, that means corn's not going to be needed as much for ethanol. There's the uncertainty with everything with RFK wanting to get rid of high fructose corn syrup. Again, that's another market for corn that is a guarantee buy.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they're starting to feel they have to be feeling the effects, if not you know, if not maybe right away, they're seeing things that are concerning for sure.
Well, I got to think that when we come toward the fall and harvest time, that that's when they're going to feel the pinch. They're going to have all this product and not as many people willing to buy it. And that means two things. They either aren't going to sell their shit or they're going to sell their shit really cheap. And either way, it's bad news for farmers.
Yeah. Um, that's probably when we'll start hearing a lot more complaints coming out from Iowa, especially I'll be hearing a lot more as it gets closer to harvest. Because like you said, if they don't have a market, it's going to rot in the fields, and
Yeah.
that's no good for anybody. The biggest thing that might save them, because it is Iowa, and you never know, is how the weather affects it. Few good storms. If they get fields flooded out, then their crop insurance pays,
Right.
and they get top dollar on the crop insurance, the way I understand it. So
Right.
there might be some farmers this year that are hoping to lose everything because the insurance pays out.
They're farming for insurance. We were talking about the tariffs earlier, and I was just thinking about it tonight as we hear that the judges say the tariffs are illegal and they've got to vacate the tariffs. You think that's going to affect the stock market in the morning? Do you think that's going to make it jump up again?
Already has. I've heard the
Oh, really?
futures index has already started climbing 400 or 500 points as of earlier
Wow.
tonight. Yeah, because now it's going to put some stability back in the market, knowing Donald Trump can't just do this yo-yo on off on off. Oh, I'm mad at you now. It's 175% tariff or whatever. Um, Investors are going to be a little more happy, more willing to spend.
Well, there was a quote from Barack Obama I saw on Raw Story or something like that. And I only read the headline, but he makes a good point. Uh, this decision from the judges may have saved Donald Trump from himself. Because Donald Trump
Yeah,
can't back down. He can't say he's wrong. So if he's forced into it, I'm guessing the Republicans are saying, don't appeal this shit. Just lay back, complain about it, but let it happen because you're fucking things up.
yeah, but Donald Trump, he won't be able to let it go.
Right.
He's going to have to go through with the appeal. He's not just going to say it. He will tell his DOJ to appeal it, because he's got to be right. He's got to be the smartest person in the room. He's got to know everything about everything, and he can never accept being wrong. But this is probably the best thing for him. He can blame the judges, he can blame the Democrats, he can blame whoever he wants now for not being able to do his tariffs, which was his only economic plan of any kind.
Right.
And Now he's got an out. Like you said, saved himself from himself. He he finds a way somehow to skate by every single time.
But the thing about it is people are saying, well, maybe he'll get off on this tariff thing. He has already done an incredible amount of damage. Even if the stock market goes up 500 points, what are we at now? Like 41, 42. February it was 45. He's got to come back 4,000 points in order to be back to where we were when he took over. Um, and that still counts as money lost by a lot of people. A lot of people. And I'm wondering how the oligarchs are thinking now. They got their ass kicked in the stock market. They probably aren't happy about that. But they're saying to themselves, well, at least we'll get the tax write off. They may not get that either. Then how are the oligarchs going to feel if they get their ass kicked in the economy and they don't get the tax break? There's going to be some pissed off billionaires.
Oh yeah, and then they're going to come back to the Republicans and go, "Yeah, we're not going to give you any more campaign money till you figure this shit out, make it happen."
Yeah.
Or maybe not as much campaign money. And then you're going to start seeing things moving through Congress, and they'll be making some changes because they got to have their campaign money.
Well, maybe that's the thing. You know, we keep talking about how when are Republicans going to decide it's too much and start backing away from Donald Trump and maybe kick him to the curb. Maybe it isn't whatever crazy shit that he's doing. Maybe we have to wait until the money people say, "Fuck you, we're giving you no more money." Because that's how they run everything anyway. It's about their jobs, it's about their position, and it's about money. That's all it's about in Congress for Republicans and a lot of Democrats too. Maybe that's what it's going to take the big money people to say, "Not giving you any more money." Then they'll freak out.
Yeah, that could be it. Like I said, they care about their own power, they care about money, they care about all of that. We know that some of the big backers were not backing him nearly as well in this last election. I know the Koch brother, whichever one's still alive, backed off a bunch of their normal donations. Um, yeah, you start backing off the big money, that may be enough to get them moving and shaking a little bit. But even then, unfortunately, the big players right now are the wrong people that to be there. They're the ones
Yeah.
that are just like Donald Trump. They're the ones that are too stupid to know what that right move is. Now, maybe if they tell them it in the right way, maybe they can get it. I don't know.
But you know, one of the other things that Donald Trump is doing that is ultimately a fuck up that will fly in his face ultimately is this continuing pissing contest he's had with Harvard. And now he's talking about, Marco Rubio's talking about aggressively revoking visas for Chinese students. This is this is going to cause some problems. He's messing with some people with big money, as I've said with Harvard. You know, the most powerful, the wealthiest, the most positioned people come out of Harvard. They're not going to like Donald Trump fucking with their alma mater. I'm just saying.
Well, that's kind of what I said when I did my TikTok about it. I'm like, you got Harvard, which has brought on some of the best attorneys in the country. We've got multiple presidents that have been alumni of Harvard. I don't know how many Supreme Court justices have gone there. It's been a college that has been in existence since before we were a country.
Right.
And if anybody knows the law, it's Harvard. You're going to have access to some of the best attorneys. Um, they're going to eat him alive, and he's too stupid to realize it. And then he keeps fucking with Harvard. They're going to start going after him big and bad, and he's not going to know what to do.
You know, a lot of people are saying that the reason he's doing it is because Malia Obama got accepted to Harvard and Barron Trump did not. And that may have some bearing on it. But what I think has more bearing on it, Donald Trump went after Harvard because they were the biggest and he thought he was bigger. And I think he's doing this more because Harvard said, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And that was the thing that triggered him because you don't say no to Donald Trump. He's got nothing but yes men around him. When somebody says no, that means he's wrong. He doesn't want to be weak, so he's going to double and triple down. And that's what he's doing to Harvard. And it's a fucking huge mistake.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. I think he's pushing back mostly because they told him we're not going to give you all the information you want about these foreign born students, these international
Right.
students. We're not going to give you reason to deport them. And even a judge said, well, you can't just tell Harvard that they can't have international students. And now you got Marco Rubio saying, well, we're going to start revoking student visas. And again, there's a process to it. And if they're not doing it right, they'll probably lose in court yet again. Even when Donald Trump was talking about this whole going after Harvard, he fucked up when talking about that too. He was talking about how these foreign countries don't pay anything for their students to come here. Well, he's only partially correct. He's correct that the country itself doesn't pay money for their students to come here to get educated. The students either pay it out of pocket or they get loans or whatever. There's no federal money used to educate them. And a lot of times they pay higher rates than American born students.
Well, absolutely. And we as a country don't pay for our students to study abroad either. Our federal
No.
government doesn't send money along, and they aren't necessarily getting a break unless they're getting some kind of scholarship to do it. But the thing about it is, with Donald Trump doing what he's doing to Harvard, it's not just about Harvard. He's trying to intimidate and influence a private company to think the way he thinks. He's taken away the right for people to run their business the way they want to do it. It's other colleges, but it could leak over into other businesses too. And that is a slippery slope. That is dangerous.
Yeah, you're right. And he is going after him, trying. I think he's trying to figure if he can get a win over Harvard, all the other colleges will fall in line,
Oh, I'm sure
which
that's the
isn't going to
case.
happen.
Yeah.
Which isn't
Yeah.
going to happen. But if he wins over the colleges, then he'll try to go after private businesses too. Which if the shoe was on the other foot, him as a businessman would hate it if the government was doing it to him. Which is
Absolutely.
why it's so bizarre that he's willing to do it to everybody else. But it's all about feeding his ego, being the tough guy, being the strong guy. That's all he cares about.
Well, and that's why I think it's not Donald Trump coming up with these ideas. It's these crazy Project 2025 people that are just trying to smash and grab and burn everything they can while they have the opportunity, seeing what sticks, what doesn't stick, what works, what doesn't work. And Donald Trump is just the little puppy fucking putting his paw print on everything they tell him because he doesn't understand this shit. Fuck, he couldn't even get into Harvard himself. He barely got into Wharton only because his dad bought a wing or something like that. This guy's not a smart man. I don't know if he even understands why he's going after Harvard, other than immigrants. All he knows is immigrants, and this it's not going to work. It's stupid.
Well, I think yeah, you might be right that he doesn't understand exactly why he's going after Harvard, other than something to do with immigrants and that they made him look stupid.
Yeah,
That though
especially that.
he understands that part. No, he couldn't get into Harvard. He got rejected, and which proves you can't buy your way into some of these schools, no matter how much money you have or supposedly have. His claim that they're some of the dumbest people go into Harvard and oh, they need remedial math. I was surprised he knew what remedial math was.
Yeah.
And maybe he said that they're taking remedial math. Maybe it's because they told him when he applied that he needed remedial math.
Yeah. Yeah. It's he hears little words and phrases and then he puts it into his rhetoric and he conjures up some story around it. None of it really has any truth to what he's saying. It's all bullshit. I wanted to talk about the deportations a little bit. We're now hearing that there is some information about Tom Horman. He is the border czar, if you will, the guy doing all the deportations. This big, dumb, fucking Huniak looking motherfucker. Um, Apparently, Tom Horman has some financial ties to private prisons locking up immigrants. And some people have some questions. Now, the DOJ is not going to go after him in its current state. But when this is all done and Donald Trump is no more, Tom Horman could have some problems going forward.
Oh yeah. If they can find ties that he was making a buck doing this, especially if it is working out the way we think with this administration, where he gets the right person in his ear and Donald Trump will do whatever you say, and he's the one directing Donald Trump to green light these deportations to these private prisons in or third countries or whatever, like in Ecuador or South Sudan or wherever they're trying to send these people. He could be facing some major criminal liability,
A lot
and
of people
that
could.
could be interesting. I mean, the number of people that are going to have fallout after Donald Trump is gone from being able to protect them is going to be massive. And he won't be able to protect them all, even with pardons, because there are still probably going to be state level crimes that can be charged for a lot of these people.
Right.
It is going
Well,
to be messy after Trump is out of office.
once Donald Trump goes down, he won't even be able to protect himself, to be perfectly honest. There'll be nobody to protect him. Immunity won't affect anybody that isn't Donald Trump, and there'll be some immunity that doesn't help Donald Trump either. So there's going to be a lot of people uh, that are going to be in trouble. And I don't understand why they don't think ahead and realize that, especially now when they see Donald Trump kind of going off the deep end. They got to know that when the end is near, they better jump ship or they better plan on going to court because there's going to be a lot of court cases. We always hear Democrats say, well, we don't want to take him to court. We want the country to heal. Don't you believe that at this point, with all that we've gone through and seen, that if this country intends to heal, we need accountability for all these crimes and all this corruption. We need to take these people to court and we need to see some punishments meted out.
Yeah, we do. One of the things I don't want to hear from Democrats after Donald Trump is out of office, when they have control again, I don't want to hear, well, we just need to let it go and move on. And like we heard with Ford and Nixon, well,
Yeah.
we're just gonna pardon everybody and move on so we can no, we need to send a clear, crisp message to anybody else who wants to try this bullshit again, that it will not be tolerated here. There will ultimately be accountability, and scare the living hell out of anybody who has ideas of being like this. Now, I realize there's not going to be another Donald Trump, because where are you going to find somebody who rises to that level of popularity who is that stupid,
Yeah.
and able to continue to fall ass backwards into success? But um, there definitely needs to be accountability, and there needs to be a lot of people going with them.
But the thing about it is I've said this before about narcissists. From a distance, they look good and they may have some friends, but when the friends get close, eventually they bail on them because they see the demons, they see the cracks, and they see the problems. Donald Trump always thought of himself as BFFs with Vladimir Putin. Now that's starting to come off a little different. Donald Trump goes in, he says he's going to end the war in Russia and Ukraine. 24 hours, doesn't do it. Then he decides he's going to mediate. He goes to Zelensky and says, Zelensky, here's what you need to do. We can stop this war tomorrow. Just give Vlad everything he wants. Zelensky says, fuck yourself. So then he goes to Vladimir Putin and says, come on, you got to give me something here. And then, of course, Vladimir Putin lies to him and then countermands everything that he says. Every time Donald Trump says something, there's another bigger missile attack in Ukraine. We got Vladimir Putin basically saying, fuck yourself, Donnie. I'm playing your shit. I don't have to take orders from you. And then Donnie says yesterday, well, he better do something in 2 weeks. He's playing with fire. I'm curious as to what Donald Trump thinks he's going to do to Vladimir Putin. He hasn't done anything yet. And at this point, I think he's just pissing off Vladimir Putin, which is a bad move for Donald Trump at this stage.
Oh, we're back to Donald Trump and his infamous 2 weeks,
Yeah.
which now tells me, oh, he better do something in 2 weeks. Yeah, what that means is next week he's going to say the same thing. Well, Vladimir Putin's got 2 weeks to get this wrapped up. We're going to keep hearing 2 weeks for as long as it takes, maybe even to the end of this term, before they do anything. Donald Trump's not going to do shit. He's just trying to appear to be tough because he can't appear to be weak because his ego will allow it. We've talked about that quite a bit tonight. But it's the truth. He's trying to be the tough guy by setting this artificial deadline, but he's not going to do shit when the deadline's up, other than extend
Yeah.
it again and say, "Well, I tried."
Well, that's exactly right. But then Vladimir Putin comes out, or his administration comes out and says, I don't think Donald Trump really understands all of what's going on in Ukraine. I think he's reacting. I think he's too emotional about it. He needs to calm down. And I can tell you this by through experience with my wife. If you say you're being too emotional and you need to calm down, not a good move. Not a good move. So I'm sure Donnie's steaming about that as well. And the trouble with Donnie is because he's a narcissist, he'll burn every bridge, he'll fucking scorch all the earth. And this time he's fucking with a murderous dictator. That could pose some problems.
It could. I don't know how this is going to resolve itself. It may end up coming around full circle, where because Vladimir keeps, screwing over Donald Trump and saying, "Well, fuck you, where I'm going to do what I want," and Donnie's not getting his way. Maybe Donnie comes full circle and starts dumping a whole bunch of money into helping Ukraine. He's doing
Uh,
the right thing for the wrong reason,
right.
which would be typical Donald Trump. Whenever he does something right, it's usually because either he doesn't understand or it's he's trying to get something else out of it. In this case, it would be one upping Vladimir Putin.
Well, you're right about that. This is what Donald Trump does. When somebody pushes back on him, he turns it around and he doubles down on them. And wouldn't that be hilarious if he just gave more money and more weapons to Ukraine than Biden ever could? That would be hilarious. But that's literally something Donald Trump would do.
Oh yeah, it would. And you could. And here's the dumb thing: Republicans, when they're in the majority, you could get Republicans on board to vote for it because
Yeah,
it's fueling the Department of Defense, government industrial complex, and all of that. You're putting, as we've talked about, if they're not buying new equipment straight away to give to Ukraine, they're selling our stuff that was going to be outdated anyway, and we'd buy new anyway. So we're
right.
doing that and buying new for our military. Either way, that's going to put jobs on a factory line somewhere here in the United States. Republicans will get behind that quickly.
Yeah. That would that would be funny if that happened. And the Republicans may look at that as helpful going into the midterms too, because people in this country, for the most part, supporting Ukraine, in spite of what the Republicans are doing. That may be one turn we see. I can't guarantee it because the Republicans will always do the fucked up thing. But if we get a real pissing contest with Russia and Vladimir Putin with Donald Trump, they could do something like that. Now, there's a former president or some official from Russia said uh, Medvedev, I think his name was. He said Donald Trump better be careful of this because you start attacking Vladimir Putin, we could be looking at World War III, which I don't think, because I don't think Russia really has the balls to do it. They just want the threat with their nuclear weapons, but I don't think they would jump on something and attack anybody. But this is all raining down on Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's got to somehow look like the tough guy. And as much as I hate Vladimir Putin, he's not tougher than Vladimir Putin. He's not smarter than Vladimir Putin, unfortunately.
Well, actually, I think that might be the better thing for us is that he's not smarter than Vladimir Putin
Yeah,
because Donald Trump will end up probably inadvertently doing, like I said, doing the right thing for the wrong reason, and he will fund Ukraine. I think you're right though about Russia not wanting to go into World War III with us because it wouldn't be just us. They would, even though our ties are kind of strained because of all the bullshit Donald Trump has tried to do with NATO, we're still part of NATO.
right.
And if we get drawn into something, Article 5 gets invoked, all of NATO sides with us. And I guarantee you, Donald Trump wouldn't hesitate to use that to his advantage
Oh
if we
no,
got
of
drawn
course
into
not.
something. Because you could easily tell them, well, you'd look like a winner by invoking Article 5 because they'd have to put their military resources and their personnel on the line, and you wouldn't have to use as much of ours, and you'd be a genius. It'd be easy to convince him to use it if it came to it. Russia doesn't want that smoke. They don't want to deal with that of all of the combined efforts of NATO plus us, especially now that a lot of the other NATO countries are increasing their own defense spending because they don't know what's going to happen with us. So they are preparing to survive without us.
Well, they don't want to do it while they're in the middle of getting their ass kicked by Ukraine, too. I mean, we know their military is limited, far more limited than we ever imagined. We found out how weak their soldiers, boots on the ground are. They've always referred to the nuclear weapons they have, but I gotta wonder for a country that's so fucking poor. It's one thing to say we got nuclear weapons. Have they maintained those nuclear weapons? Are they as strong as they tell us? Because I don't know if people understand this, but Vlad has a tendency to lie on occasion too.
Yeah, that's an entirely other question. And of course, we'll never know.
No, and we
Um,
don't want to find out, honestly, but you know,
right. Well, if we could find out by by maybe a regime change or something where we got some truth coming out of Moscow, and we could trust the information we were getting about their condition. But yeah, they were supposed to be what, the number three strongest military in the world
yeah,
before they invaded Ukraine. And I don't remember where Ukraine ranked on the list, but it wasn't nearly as high. Everyone was saying Russia would be overrunning Ukraine in 3 weeks from
three
start to
days.
finish. Was it 3 days?
Hey, yeah,
Yeah. And it was either way. What are we, 3 years on now? Three and a half?
almost four. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
And they're still holding on. It's unreal how much um, Ukraine has actually held on and how weak Russia really appears. And
Yeah,
I think they're only getting weaker day by day. Every day that Ukraine holds on makes Russia that much weaker.
yeah, um, yeah. The thing about it is Russia wants us to believe, and Donald Trump believes what Russia tells him that the only reason why Ukraine hasn't been overrun is because Russia's a compassionate country. Vladimir
Right.
Putin wants this thing to end as quickly as possible too, because he's costing them money, costing them troops, costing them military equipment. He wants it to end, but he's such an egomaniac, such a narcissist, he can't do it by giving anything up. He has to appear as though he won in this process. Now, if there was a way you could make it fair and palatable for Ukraine and still make Vladimir Putin look like he won, then he'd probably do it just to back out of this thing. But he's not in a position to do that. And Zelensky's not cooperative about trying to allow Vladimir Putin to save face.
Yeah. I mean, and if I was Zelensky, I wouldn't want to give him an opportunity to save face at this point. If you're 3.5 years in or whatever, you're holding your own, even without additional help coming from the United States, and they keep continue to look weaker and weaker. Why would you try to give him a way out to save face, especially because the only way Russia wants to end this involves them keeping a
Right.
big chunk of Ukrainian territory. I saw somebody on TikTok put up a map of the United States and proportionately um, mapped out how much territory it would be like we had to give up
Yeah.
for what Ukraine wanted. And I want to say it was most of the eastern states,
Really.
like
How
Maine
about we,
all the way down to Georgia.
how about we just give them Texas, Florida, and Alabama and call it a day? I'm willing to do that.
Yeah,
Russia
maybe.
can, I mean, those people love Russia anyway. They love Vlad Putin. Why not? Give it to Russia. Fuck them.
Yeah, yeah, but it was just showing just how much landmass proportionately there that Ukraine was expected to give up. If we were asked to give up that much in any scenario, hell, if we had to give up, a 1 square mile piece of land it, because of a war, all of those countries that or all of those states that support Russia, like the Republicans do, they'd say, hell no, we're not giving up that little bit of land. It's very easy to say, well, yeah, you can do that when it doesn't involve you personally.
Right. We're getting down to the end, and since we're talking about Russia and Ukraine, we've got to bring up Israel and Hamas and the whole Gaza thing. That is that went so wrong because people didn't think Joe Biden was handling it well enough. Uh, I think the Israeli cabinet said they're going to take over Gaza. Last time they did that wasn't temporary. It was about 10, 12 years that they took it over. Um, Benjamin Netanyahu's got no reins on him now because Donald Trump is just either frustrated or just willing to let Netanyahu do what he wants. And Netanyahu's not going to stop fighting because then he'll go to jail and be kicked out of office. That whole fucking thing is a mess. And anybody that voted for Donald Trump thinking it was going to be better, they got to be feeling pretty fucking foolish at this point.
You would think. I get so sick of hearing about, well, I can't vote for Genocide Joe, Genocide Joe, Genocide Joe. Joe Biden didn't start the war.
No,
He supported an ally who had been attacked, and that's what you do with an ally. And he was trying to facilitate a peace deal, and he was trying to also keep humanitarian aid going into the region. How much humanitarian aid has gone into Israel since Donald Trump took over? I don't think any.
no, I don't think any has gone in there, and people are being killed every day. Israel is bombing the shit out of them, and people always, it's funny that whenever you say something against Israel, people want to say you're anti-Semitic. No, I don't have a problem with Israel. I don't have a problem with the people of Israel. They're good people. I have a problem with Benjamin Netanyahu. The same way I feel about Americans. Mostly America is good, but we've got a fuck up running the country. And as long as those fuck ups, Benjamin Netanyahu or Donald Trump are running the country, we've got problems. And the one thing that Joe Biden did with Benjamin Netanyahu put reins on him and said, you better not fucking do this or you're going to have a problem. Donald Trump's not doing that anymore. He's letting Benny do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, he is, which is dangerous.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Somebody like that needs to have the guardrails put on, needs to be uh, controlled. And Donald Trump just doesn't want to do that. I think because he likes the authority power that Netanyahu is showing, he's envious of it. Uh, I don't know. We got to do
Well,
something to reel it in, but
well,
Donald
Donald
Trump's not
Trump
going to be the.
Donald Trump thinks he can just make a threat. He doesn't understand what diplomacy is about and the whole process. And even if he did, he's too ADHD to fucking deal with it. He wants to say, "You stop, or I'm going to do this." And if they aren't afraid of him, nothing happens. And that's the kind of way it is. I'm mad at Vlad. I'm mad at Benjamin Netanyahu. They better come in line, or else. They're saying, "Or else what, motherfucker?" Donald Trump doesn't know anything about diplomacy. He'll never uh, barter out a deal for peace in Ukraine or in Gaza. He just doesn't have the tools to fucking do it.
No, no, he doesn't. All he has is schoolyard bully tactics. And
Yeah.
when those don't work, he doubles down on those bully tactics. That's the because he's got no other tools in it, in his work belt. He's screwed.
Yeah, he is screwed, and we're screwed in the process because of it. Well, Eric, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for coming on. Tell folks how they can find you. If they haven't found you by now, they better fucking get on it.
Well, thanks again for having me. I love doing the podcast. You can find me on TikTok and YouTube primarily. Analytical Iowan. Um, I'm on both. I do content almost daily. I'm a few days I still struggle, but mostly that's because of changing work schedules. And if you find me on one or the other, I do have a link tree which will take you to everywhere else. I do have my content. Working on getting better about keeping up on Blue Sky and some of the other ones, but primarily TikTok and YouTube.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And because of your new work schedule, you're not as readily available on the podcast. So we want to get you when we can. So keep us informed of your availability so we can always have a spot for the Analytical Iowan. I know people look forward to hearing from you. They enjoy the show. So we want to have you on as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I definitely will. You know, I'll jump in on the lives if you're having one on a night I'm free. Sounds like my schedule's going to be changing yet again, so I may have some more availability. And
Good, good.
I'm winging it week by week, and I'll just jump in wherever I can.
Sounds good. I'm thinking I'll maybe do a live on TikTok on Friday. On Friday, yeah, I'm gonna try to do that. I got to check with TJ and uh, Rebecca. They've been on vacation down in Vegas for a while, so I think they're coming back today or yesterday, and we'll see if they're available on Friday night so we can do a TikTok live. I won't be doing a YouTube live. That fucked me up today or yesterday, so um, we'll do the Substack lives when it's just me. Or the TikTok lives, and I always enjoy doing those. So hopefully you'll be able to make that one or whatever TikTok live we have in the future.
Yeah, if it's Friday, I know I'll be at work, but look forward to jumping into those lives. I enjoy doing them when I can get there. Enjoy
Yeah,
listening to them
absolutely.
after the fact too, because it's always a great discussion. Because you never know where you're going to go. You never know who's going to jump in, who's going to ask what. Uh, and you start out with a game plan, and you end up somewhere else entirely, which is always fun.
Well, yeah, that's how I've always done the show is that I don't have any game plan. I don't have any outline that I follow. We take the conversation wherever it goes, and we're fortunate when we do the lives. We have the normal people on the panel like you or Will or whatever, or TJ or Rebecca. But it's the people that come out of the crowd that make comments. There's so many smart people, so many people with experience and knowledge of things. I learn a lot every time I do it. That's why I enjoy it.
Yeah, I enjoy them too, because like you said, you learn a lot. You know, you get people who have been in different walks of life, uh, who know more. You know, we know surface level stuff about a lot of things, but like we had the one gentleman that had worked for years with Department of Defense, had an entirely different perspective that one night. Learned a lot in that one little live there. So always fun, always enjoyable.
And like Eric said, if you don't make the lives, they typically are the podcasts, so you can hear the whole live after the fact at your convenience. So we hope you do that. You can get the podcast on YouTube, the video podcast. You can get the podcast on audio version on Spotify. You can also get the video version on Spotify now too. That's something new that they've been doing. So Eric, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do it, to listen. I hope you have a great day. And I think we got Will on tomorrow. So be looking forward to that. We'll talk to you then.